Welcome to Football Game Plan Scout Team here on the Game Plus Network. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. We have a great show lined up for you guys this evening, and we're going to keep it all defensive here as we're going to talk to three different NFL draft prospects for the 2020 class. And why not get the show kicked off the right way by starting in the middle with linebacker Jonas Griffith of Indiana State. Well, now we do cover a lot of FCS football, so I'm very familiar with the Sycamores program. Case in point, in our preseason Missouri Valley Conference, I guess you call it a podcast show, what have you, I picked you guys to be a playoff participant this year. So I'm glad I have a Sycamore on the show so I can voice my frustration in the fact that I believed in you guys this year and you guys let me down. But all jokes aside, you guys balled out this year. And I want to tell you, playing in that conference and playing the type of teams you guys do really helps, it helps translate you guys from the college level to the pro level. How do you feel as though playing in the Missouri Valley Conference helped grow your game?
Oh man, the Missouri Valley Conference was fantastic. There's a lot of guys that are in the NFL already from the Missouri Valley Conference. There's guys such as Carson Wentz, David Johnson. There's a lot of other guys that, like Colin Sanders, a lot of other guys. And the competition week in and week out is really good. And our coaches tell us that, our conference is just as good as the MAC, the Conference USA, and the Missouri Valley Conference is really good. And it's top one in the FCS.
Yeah, he's not telling you a lie either. That conference definitely prepares you for the rigors of what you're going to see at the level above you. When you look at your background, it was very interesting. 1 year of high school football, and you found yourself getting a scholarship to Indiana State, and you redshirted, which I think is great. How beneficial was that redshirt year for you, considering that you only had played that 1 year of high school football?
Oh, man, the redshirt year was really big for me. Like you said, playing 1 year high school football, I wasn't really familiar with a lot of the defensive schemes that coaches had going on, and I feel like the redshirt year helped me get a year under my belt, helped me develop more. I came into school at about 210 pounds, so I was really undersized at the linebacker position. So I feel like me getting there with the strength and conditioning coach, getting the extra year under my belt, and just, learning the defense as a whole after being a guy that was just mainly a basketball player.
What are some of the crossovers from playing basketball to football? I see some of the crossover from, let's say, point guard to cornerback, but going from playing basketball to playing linebacker, what were some of the crossovers that you saw right away once you got on the football field?
I mean, I feel like I was always a physical guy that loved contact, and I feel like that was the main thing. Banging down in the post, I was a big guy that likes to bang in the post, played the power forward and the center as well as the small forward position. I banged in the post as well as, like defensive slide to about the linebacker position as well, but, shuffling and things like that.
It's interesting because we always used to joke, I was a college football player myself, and they used to hate seeing us in the rec because they knew it was going to be a lot of fouls. And we were basically football players playing basketball. So I totally understand. Now that it makes sense, you're a linebacker and you're a football player, you play basketball, I totally know you used to rack up a ton of fouls out there in basketball. So, but when you look at your game and your development, I think it kind of coincided with the growth of the program, because when Coach Mallory got there, you guys were winless, and then he quickly turned that thing around. When you started to see the progress in yourself and the progress as well as within the team, what was that journey like? Because I think Indiana State was one of those sleeping giant programs, and they finally got back on track, on a winning track with Coach Mallory. So how big was development in that program, both personally and also as a team?
I feel like as soon as Coach Mallory got on campus, that's when we noticed the difference. Coach Mallory not only is an amazing football coach, but he's an amazing guy as well. He treats us with the utmost respect, and, he just demands excellence, and he has a great coaching staff that demands excellence as well. I feel like he came in and we didn't have a lot of food, we didn't have a lot of resources that the other universities had, and Coach Mallory, came in and gave us what a real Division I program had, and he, said this is Division I program, so we're going to treat it like that. So we had a lot of food, we had more money, we had a lot of everything, more equipment, more gear, and I feel like that, helped recruits come along as well, and he just, made us work super hard. We fell in love with the process and bought into what he had to sell.
You know what's interesting about you when I watched you at practice at the College Gridiron Showcase and hearing your words now, it all makes sense. Because like, man, this dude is really taking full advantage of this opportunity. It didn't matter if it was, individual, 9-on-7, pass scale, team drills, scrimmage. It didn't matter. Every rep was critical for you. And speaking of the CGS, how important was it for you to participate in that all-Star event, and what did you get out of that event? And also, third part of that question, what did you want to go down there and show the scouts?
Man, honestly, I didn't think I was going to go to the CGS. When I got the invite, I was like, I was kind of looking at the NFLPA, the Shrine, and the Reese Senior Bowl. I was like, hopefully I get that invite, and it didn't hit me until I got there. And I was talking to actually a scout from one of the teams, and he was like, God put you in this bowl game, in this All-Star Showcase for a reason. And I was just like, you know what? Like, you're right. Like, I came in, I was kind of upset. I was like, man, like, and I feel like that was, what kind of set me, I was like, you're right. Like, he was like, make the most of it, go out there and show these scouts, because there will be scouts from all 32 teams here. He was like, go out there and show, what you're capable of. And I was like, okay, like, like a lot of these scouts don't know who I am, and I wanted them to kind of see what I brought to the table. I know I bring size, and I know I bring strength, but I want them to also know that I could move well in space, that I could cover guys, and that I wasn't afraid of contact, and also that I was really fast. So I'm fast for a big guy, want to show those guys what I was capable of.
We'll take a quick commercial break and be back with more Football Game Plan Scout Team. Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by Ninth and Lux. Visit the website ninethandlux.com and check out the clothing gallery. Do You Music with featured artist IW in his latest album, Season 2. You can check that out on iTunes as well as doyoumusic.com. Nesby Phipps, art, life, entertainment. NesbyPhipps.com. Grind It Out Fitness. Visit the website grinditoutfitness.com and download the app. Be sure to order your copy of the Go-Go Offense by Coach Brennan Marion on footballgameplan.com/GoGo Offense. Coach Marion goes through the ins and outs of his explosive offense, one that's tearing up the college football field and putting a lot of points on the scoreboard. Again, you can order your copy at footballgameplan.com/GoGo Offense. Welcome back to Football Game Plan Scout Team here on the Game Plus Network. Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and we're going to roll right along with our defensive focused Scout Team show today, and we're going to stop in Philadelphia, right outside Philadelphia in Villanova, PA, where the Villanova Wildcats linebacker Drew Wiley does a great job of patrolling the middle of the field, and we're able to speak with him about his abilities as a linebacker and what he projects to be as a pro.
I was at the Temple game last year when you guys upset Temple in the opener, and this year I was at the opener week 0 game against Colgate, and I had written down by your name, man, 52 just finds the ball, and I just think that that's a really unique part of playing this position. Do you feel as though when you're playing linebacker, it pays to be instinctive in finding yourself around the ball, which you have done a lot of in your career?
Yeah, I mean, whenever I'm playing football, or defensively, I focus on being as disruptive as possible, whether that's interceptions, pass breakups, tackle for losses, sacks, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries. I try to do all those things whenever I'm on the field.
Well, that's important because when you look at the way the game has evolved, I played the game when it was strictly linebackers were your run defenders, and if you had the rare athletic guy, you put him out there in your nickel defense. But for the most part, you guys now have to be able to play both. And you talked about your pass coverage. I think that's probably the most underrated part of your game because not only are you doing a great job in zone coverage, but also, man, take me through the process of developing as a pass defender at that position.
Yeah, I mean, it comes from watching a lot of film, knowing what to expect on certain downs and distances. And, I mean, at the end of the day, when it comes to man coverage, all you got to think is just, you can cover this guy. I can cover the man across me. It doesn't matter who it is.
Well, why do you feel as though a lot of linebackers, because you see it a lot, and I know the stigma about linebackers, linebacker in space, throw it his way, or even you see these drills that are heavily tilted toward the offensive side of football in one-on-ones at these all-star events or games like that, where the linebacker is just at a disadvantage. So why do you feel as though linebackers tend to panic in that situation?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, well, fortunately in our defense, the linebackers play a lot of pass coverage. Maybe when they were in high school or college, they weren't told to play pass coverage as much, and they haven't had as many reps as, say, I have, something like that.
I'm glad you brought up the defense because watching Villanova play defense was one of the more enjoyable things over the last 4 years. I've been watching the program. How has playing at Villanova and also playing within that defense sort of helped you develop as a player and as a prospect?
I mean, our defense is very demanding for a linebacker. I mean, you got to be able to rush the passer, you got to be able to stop the run, and you got to be able to play in coverage. And I think over the years, I have gotten substantially better at all three of them. When I first got to school, I would say I was pretty good at pass coverage, pretty good at run, okay at rushing the passer. But as time has gone on, every offseason, I focused on getting better at each one of those. And it's how our defense is set out. They ask for a lot from linebacker, and I'm glad that I'm in a position like that where it's so demanding because I expect the best for myself.
Well, you talk about playing linebacker at Villanova. Quietly, you guys have produced pro players consistently at that level. Is it safe to say Villanova is linebacker U of the FCS?
I mean, I guess in the past couple of years, I mean, we've had a lot of great guys come through the program: Austin Calitro, Don Cherry, Ed Shockley, Jeff Steep. I mean, those guys all being older than me, and they really mentoring me along the way. And I mean, I still keep in contact with guys like Austin, who's on the Jaguars as of right now. He's always telling me about everything that's going on with him. And I guess in a way you could say, I mean, I guess this year too, we kind of in the room, every breakdown we would do LBU. So that was yeah.
Yeah, it's okay to say. It's okay to tout you guys' success here on this podcast. Nobody's listening. When you talk about your production, I'm glad you phrased it that way because you have gotten significantly better each and every year. And this season, finding yourself in the backfield a lot. You were in on a lot of pass breakups as well. When you look at your senior season, a lot of guys tend to maybe stalemate, but where have you been able to continue to grow your game to where you have gotten better every year? You see a guy have a great sophomore year or a great freshman year, and he'll flatline, but you have been able to consistently get better, and that says a lot about you as a person, but also you as a player and a talent.
Yeah, I mean, as you get older, more people, whether it be your coaches or your teammates who are younger than you, they expect more from you. And I like being in that position where they expect a lot from me because I want to be the person on defense every down that the opposing offense is worried about. No matter who we're playing, I want to be disruptive. That was my main goal every time I was on the football field. Be as disruptive as I can.
One of the things I hate about this whole job that I do, because I'm a college football color analyst, so I'm on broadcast every weekend. I cover the NFL as well, so I'm at these NFL practices, and I see a ton of players, a ton of football all year long. And the one thing I hate is the constant knock on guys coming from the FCS level. It's like, oh, he played at a small school. We don't know what he can do. And I'm the only one seems like the voice like, nah, this guy can actually play because of the caliber of competition he played against is real good. And you see the NFL is littered with guys from the FCS level. But I said all that to say this. When you're playing at Villanova, you're playing in the CAA. How has playing in that conference is I think is probably one of the more transferable conferences to the next level. And how has playing in that conference kind of helped develop your game as a pro prospect?
Yeah, I mean, playing the CAA, it's a blessing and a curse. I mean, like every week you got a great game and you never really know what the outcome is going to be. And it doesn't matter what the record is or who you're playing. Every week the other team shows up to play. And I think like you said throughout the NFL, there's a ton of CAA guys that are in the NFL or have been in the NFL before. And I mean, the competition every week, like I said, like it's fun to play against. And I'm really glad that I was able to be a part of such a great conference like the CAA.
You look at this game, and I always like to joke and say football is a physical classroom, right? You learn a lot. What would you say is the biggest thing football has taught you?
It's taught me discipline. I mean, definitely throughout my life, I've seen a lot of people that they don't know how to go about doing certain things. And with football, it has taught me the discipline to how to plan something out and take action.
We'll take our final commercial break and be back with more Football Game Plan Scout Team. Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by Financial Coaching LLC, Investment, Retirement, Security, Stewardship Credit. Financial growth is in your hands. StewardshipCredit.com. Adrienne Marie Photo, photographer, writer, management. AdrienneMariePhotography.com. Lock Multimedia. Welcome back to Football Game Plan Scout Team here on the Game Plus Network. Once again, we're on the defense side of football as we've been the entire show. And one of the major mantras, foundation statements that we make here at Football Game Plan is size is not a skill. One player that exemplifies that mantra to the T is Sha'haun Williams, a defensive lineman from Notre Dame College.
Well, it's an honor for me to talk to someone that has found a way to play so great on one side of the ball. I mean, you talk about a defensive lineman that has set up shop in the opposing backfield a ton. I want to say your last 2 years, over 30 plus sacks, which is just phenomenal to see. And when you talk about getting to the quarterback, there's a uniqueness to it. How have you been able to be so consistent in that regard? Because, everyone is chasing sacks. Everybody's trying to get sacks, yet you found a way to consistently do it. How have you been able to get that job done up front?
I think it's a few things that go along with it. First it's just have an idea of what you want to do. Like move wise. If I want to bull and jerk, or if I want to do speed to power, or power and counter to speed, and and that stuff just comes with a lot of just muscle memory and just practicing your moves. Just 1,000 times, throughout your career, and throughout, the days when, no one's looking, and, just going over that and so many times. And like I said, it just becomes muscle memory. And also, I do a lot of film, like breaking down film and watching film. So that also plays a big part into it. And just being in a system with my coaches that just set me up to put me in the best position to succeed. So I think when you combine all three of those aspects and just go out there and play to the best of your ability, I think that's what ultimately ends in the result. A lot of sacks, like you said.
Yeah, it's interesting, even more so because you are technically, quote unquote, an undersized defensive lineman, and you're not playing on the edge. You're playing inside a lot. So when you look at being, let's say, 6'1", about 260, and playing inside where you're dealing with guys at about 6'3", 6'4", 320, 330, how have you been able to use your size as a skill set? Size as an asset. Because what we always say here at Football Game Plan is size is not a skill. Because people will look at your height and weight and say, okay, well, he's probably going to have to be an outside linebacker, which may ultimately be the case. However, you've shown the ability to rush inside, and the way the game has played now, you have guys that are shorter, maybe a little bit smaller, playing inside and being able to be effective.
Right. And I think, like you said, just with how the game is kind of like changing, and, you don't see, it used to be, coaches want the interior D lineman, real big, just to clog up holes. But now, a lot of times, like even with my favorite player, like Aaron Donald, I studied a lot of film from him, and he's a very undersized guy. And before my junior season, when I moved to inside to 3 technique, that's who I just watched a lot of film on, and to use to my advantage, my size. A lot of linemen, they can't. I got great leverage already because I'm like 6'1", I'm undersized, so I'm always under them just to begin with. And then once I keep my pad level low, then that just helps my leverage even more. And once you got leverage as a defensive lineman, you have all your power within your hips and your lower body, and that's when you get a guard, off balance, and you can just, just counter with anything, or you can just continue to use use speed. But I think that's real. That's one of my biggest like advantages is being undersized. Honestly, it's just because I have that leverage, and I can also use that speed and quickness. Because by the time I maybe give a head fake to the inside and then get back in my gap, a O lineman has to reach down and bend down more because I'm smaller than the average typical interior guy because I'm 6'1". So by the time he does that, I'm quick. So by the time he does that, I'm already around him.
What's interesting is, how well you play the run. And one case, one instance in allowing that to be the case is winning with your hands first. Because if you can get your hands on an offensive lineman first, or whoever wins that hands first battle is going to win that rep. And I think you get your hands on an offensive lineman first a lot, which allows you then to control and then find the ball. So, because it's easy to say a guy at a shorter height can get engulfed by a lineman and he won't be able to find the ball. That's why they tend to put those smaller guys on the edge. How have you been able to find the football consistently playing inside? Because, again, your hands I think are great. How much of that goes into, okay, I got to win with my hands and I got to be able to see where the ball is. Then that way I know my quickness can definitely get there and make a play.
I think it's just, kind of to go back to what I said in the beginning, just basically just practicing what works for me and just going over it, just making it muscle memory. And a lot of it has to do with my technique. I look at my technique as as a big advantage also that I have because I'm not the biggest, so I have to use. If I'm not the biggest, then something else has to overcome that. So I focus a lot on my technique and getting my hand placement right and making sure my hands win every matchup. Because like you said, if you can get your hands on the inside, whoever get their hands on the inside first and has a good knockback, then 9 times out of 10 they're going to win that one-on-one matchup.
So that's it for this week's episode of Football Game Plan Scout Team. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts. Don't forget to check out and subscribe to the Football Game Plan Network located at youtube.com/Football Game Plan. Also subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast and leave us a 5-star rating. That's where you can find a lot of our other Scout Team podcast interviews with all of the 2020 NFL and CFL draft prospects that we've talked to throughout this entire draft season. And also be sure to keep it locked here on the Game Plus Network for Friday's debut of our XFL Game Day show, where we will go around the league previewing the upcoming slate of games and also talk more news, notes, and tidbits around the XFL.